Okay, that's you done all the hard work now. You can kind of relax a little bit. So from looking at really successful and creative events over the last 5 or 6 years, I found that they all did one of these 7 things. And a lot of them, the most successful ones, tended to do 2 or 3 of these things. Again, can you see that, or is it a little bit dark? So what creative events do? The first thing is they power attendees, they create great content, they unleash the power of social media, they engage the senses, they create a narrative, they think big, and they disrupt. So I'm going to give you examples of all of these. Anyone come across this? This is great. A small hack, which is very, very briefly, loads of people getting together, some software developers try and come up with some quick fixes over a weekend. Now, this was originally born in Glasgow in 2014. 2015, there was 25 different hacks all over the world. Last year, there was 60. So it's built into a big community, and they kind of call it a tribe. There's a cycle hack tribe. But what I love in terms of powering the attendees is someone has created this brand, which is what you could all do. You create a brand, and then you go out to your members, and you say, here's our brand. Here's a little bit of guidance on how you run an event like this. Why don't you go off and organize it yourselves? I mean, how empowering is that for your attendees? And I know this seems really, really scary, and I can go and, I can take anyone through this if you want to speak to me after or any of these examples. But this is a wonderful way of you going out to your membership and saying, we've got some structure. Why don't you all organize an event yourself? And you'll be amazed how successful these can be. Has anyone heard of the term meeting design? Meeting design. Yeah? Great, I've seen a few nods. Meeting design is just very basically, how do you look at your content and deliver it differently? How do you texturize it? On this content, on this 2-day program, there's maybe 3 or 4 different ways of delivering sessions, which is meeting design. This is an exercise I do when I'm doing training around meeting design. And without fail, my audience, when they think about it, come up with 30 different ways to deliver content. Now, if you went to an event that had 30 different sessions, it would be an absolute nightmare. But if you have 4 or 5, 6 or 7 over a couple of days, you really start to deliver content in a much more impactful, meaningful way. So I would encourage you all to take down the phrase meeting design and have a look at it and see how it can help you deliver your content. But if I went through that exercise with you, you'd all be able to come up with 30 different ways of delivering content. But how many different ways do you have at your annual conference? 2, 3? It's very traditional, very traditional. So you can be really, really creative. And events that do that are very, very successful. Okay, I think you can see that. Can you see that? Can anyone guess what type of event that is? Music concert? Anyone else? Movie, that's a good one, yep. No, you're wrong. It's an annual general meeting. I think we're frozen a little bit over here. So this is an annual general meeting for the company Brewdog. Yeah, so what Brewdog do is they invite all of their shareholders along for an annual general meeting, like everyone else would do, but it's fun. And the girl who organised this is not an event organiser, and I often find a lot of innovation within our industry doesn't come from event organisers. She's a personal assistant. So she looked at the annual general meeting and thought, I can't organise a traditional annual general meeting for Brewdog, one of the UK's most dynamic companies. So I'm going to do it completely differently. So they had a bar and they had bands, and it was fantastic, really, really enjoyable. But what she did, which was really, really smart, is she did a lot of things to allow people to share on social media. So how many people went to that event and did this kind of selfie at our boring AGM, hashtag piss up? And this spread, this annual general meeting spread. Now I'd ask you a question. How many tweets are ever sent from your annual general meeting? Now, she said to me there was a spike in sales over that weekend, and she doesn't know if it's got anything to do with the social media and the use of the hashtag, but it had millions of impressions, this annual general meeting. And I thought, how amazing is this, that organizer, personal assistant, but in this case an organizer, she looked at this event and she said, this can be so much more. Not just in an annual general meeting, but so much more than a piss-up. How can I use this to further the aims of my organization? And I thought, wow, that's inspiring. And I thought, how many times do we in our organizations do that? Because this is what events can do. If they use them properly, they can do most wonderful things. But I think organizers tend to be a little bit too constrained. And I think that's when we go back to that event production slide. That's the reason why.